Vik Lanning, aka Vik FPV, is acknowledged as one of the best freestyle pilots out there. Today we talk about how he got into FPV, where did it start, what inspired him. I hope that you'll enjoy this. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you today the one, the only Vik. Oh wait, no, it's not Vik. It's Vik FPV, Vik Lanning. We haven't had Vik on the show yet. Vik may come on the show. You never know. It just really depends on if you like Aussies or not. But how you doing, man? Good to see you.
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. So the inside joke about the whole Vik thing was I was interviewing Little Stellar Fox and Jamie and we couldn't remember if it was Vik or Vek during the interview, and so I think we both said Vik, and then a few people went a little crazy with it, so it was pretty funny. So then actually, and you know, for the viewer, I was actually trolling Lance Wolf Vek in a personal post, and that all of a sudden he was like, "No, you want Vik Lanning," and then you got pulled into the thread, and I was like, "Hey, I'll interview you for sure," and you were like, "Yeah, that sounds great." So, which, you know, I mean, you were actually on my list at some point to reach out to. So I'm glad to have you on. How you doing, man?
I'm pretty good. I know Vek or Lance. We've known each other for like maybe 4 years. Actually, I'm not sure if you remember or not, but he used to do FPV Life.
Yeah. When did he stop
YouTube channel interview? When did he stop? I think he stopped maybe, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
Because I think he stopped it right around the time that I was really getting into FPV. So it'd be interesting to go back and find that and like listen to it. I bet there's some gems in there.
There's some crazy stuff in there, and he would do it like at midnight and like sometimes even go over like 6 hours. Like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it would be a live chat thing, so it was crazy. So
yeah. So I take it you were on. Were you on it with them? Were you part of it, or?
I was with Final Glide.
Okay.
Or Chad.
Yeah.
And we did kind of an interview together with him, and I think his partner at the time, I forgot his name, but we did an interview with him and just shoot the shit.
There's quite a few kind of defunct FPV podcasts out there at this point, because there was the one that Cody Matson was on. Was that? Oh man, I wish I'm doing him a disservice. I don't know what the names were.
That one went strong for a few years.
It did. And then Steele and Konasty and whoever the other guy is, forgive me. Ruben. Okay.
Yeah.
I listened to them a few times. It was interesting. But
they rarely talk about FPV stuff.
I know, that was the funny part. Is they I think one episode I listened to, I was coming back. I was on like a 5-hour drive, and I was like, let me just listen to these guys. And I think I listened to them for like an hour and a half, something like that. And I don't think they touched on FPV at all during the entire episode. It was kind of like, it was super funny. So
yeah, that's the reason why I listen to them, because it just gets hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's so funny. So you know, we typically start off the show with the origin story. So how did you get into FPV? How long have you been flying? Just take me kind of through it a little bit.
Okay, so I think I've been flying for 4 years, give or take a few months. And the way that I got into it was. Wow, this is a long time. Charpoo at the time, I was watching some of his videos, and there was this video where I want to say he's going through a hole with a quad.
That's the one that everybody, I know which one you're talking about.
So if anyone's familiar with Charpoo, that is the video that everyone knows about.
Yeah.
So I spent a few months 4 years ago looking at these type of drone racing videos. And Charpoo was one of them. We had Steele, and then we had Chad Nowak, and then we also had John at the time. I think those are the 4 people that I knew about, and then Stinger Swarm, obviously, you know, just all
he
5
popped
of them.
up eventually.
Yeah. So all 5 of them, I started watching a few months after I watched Charpoo's video, and then there was this one day where John, I believe, posted his
Skitzo for everybody who, because he's kind of fallen off the map, but you see him every once in a while. He's like a ghost in people's videos. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, he had this most epic run. I think it was the F3 Expo.
Yes,
he had the most epic run. Yes,
that's the first time that I think anybody had done like the unofficial dive gate, right?
Yeah. That's exactly
he won
what
that,
happened.
Didn't he?
He did not win that.
Oh, he didn't?
No, someone else won it, but everyone was like, if you look at that should have won it.
Yeah,
I think that run was before, I think that was semifinals. I don't want to speak for that moment, but I'm pretty sure he didn't win it. But it was great. It was a great run, and then this is the first time I actually seen someone do a flight beginning to end without editing it, right? That was very rare to see someone go, you know, a 2-minute flight without editing it, because you would crash.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, back then it's like clean flight, or, you know, was it clean flight? It was clean flight,
there was
right? Yeah.
Clean flight and beta flight. So give me a time frame. Is this like 2014 or 2015?
Whenever the expo was, probably 2014, because beta flight did not exist. I was on clean flight when I started.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it was probably 2013, maybe early or late.
Yeah.
Because I was on clean flight when it started. So I saw his run, and it reminded me kind of like looks
like it was 2015, by the way.
2015, is that
well,
recent?
He's got an FP. I just looked it up real quick. And there's a bunch of timestamps for 2015. But maybe, I don't know, I might be wrong.
You might be right. That makes sense, because I've been flying for 4 years since 2019. So it's probably right.
Okay.
It's probably right. So somewhere around there, I saw that run, and I was like, wow, this really felt like a skate contest.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it felt like. Like, someone's just going crazy doing these tricks and maneuvers, and giving you, and the music he chose was like on point with the vibe of the video. And then after I saw that video, I was kind of on the fence of buying this stuff, because it's pretty expensive for someone to dive into, not knowing if they'll like it or not, right? And at the time, you know, people complain about pricing right now.
Yeah.
But
oh my God.
4 or 5 years back,
it's so much more expensive.
Just appreciate the price right now, because you would spend twice as much for a motor. Easily. So that's kind of what I saw. And then that night, after I saw his run like 100 times, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and get FPV and order all this crap and put together my first quad. And that's kind of how I got into it. And I was initially on whatever he was running, because I think he had the parts listed in his YouTube channel. And so basically just mimicked his setup as much as I could. And I started flying.
Cool. And so you've been flying for 4 years. I mean, it's so funny. I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of it comes back to that group of guys, whether it be the early Rotor Riot days or whether it be the Atlanta crew. Like, there's so many people that were inspired by, you know, Steel and Skitzo and Charpoo, and it's kind of amazing. They kind of like formed the hobby in a sense. I mean, there were definitely guys before him, like Metal Danny and Boris and stuff like that. But I think and you probably remember this, because I flew on clean flight at first too. I mean, it wasn't like you slapped a bunch of motors and stuff onto a quad, and then it just flew beautifully.
Yeah.
I mean, these things flew like crap.
Yeah, they did.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, you know, we like number one, nowadays on Betaflight, you've got to have like a PhD to understand what's happening. I mean, I'm not knocking on the Betaflight devs. I'm not knocking on anybody, but like, if you like, I'm an experienced pilot, and if I don't move any of the sliders, I don't do anything. I just put Betaflight on my flight controller and then just fly it, because I'm like, I've had so many bad experiences. Like, I'm just gonna move this a notch, right? And then all of a sudden, everything, you know, blows up. Your quad handles completely differently. But I mean, if you remember back to that time, like how much time did you put into tuning? How much time did you put into like making the drone fly?
Okay, so honestly, I would say so the biggest challenge for new people is the firmware is not user. Let's talk about Betaflight for a second.
Okay,
the firmware is not user friendly. Let's just be honest. From right now, or from back then to right now, has it got easier for Betaflight? No,
not really.
Like Clean Flight, Betaflight, they're in the same bucket, right?
Yeah.
So it has not gotten easier. And this is the biggest challenge, because generally the firmware that runs that stuff is the cheapest. So people that are new to the hobby are going to get the cheapest, best quality gear they can. And most of that stuff is going to be BL Heli or anything that runs Betaflight Clean Flight. Right. So I think that challenge is still present right now. And I could talk to you a little bit about that, because I'm a KISS guy.
Okay.
And I was flying Betaflight. Well, I flew Clean Flight, flew Betaflight, and as soon as KISS came out with an FC, I switched immediately, because the user experience is more friendly than those two things. Because 90% of people that just want to get up in the air, they don't need all that extra stuff.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or make it, you know, one thing that I was thinking about, and this is, I haven't posted this idea anywhere, but have something that is a simplified version from a GUI aspect of Betaflight, so people don't get lost. Have you seen
the latest interface for Betaflight? They actually have an expert mode.
I saw that.
But the default UI is still, that's the default UI. There's actually something beyond the default UI. It's called expert mode. And I'm like, I'm not switching that button.
Yeah, no. So just to, a lot of people would say, well, you can't really speak on Betaflight because you haven't flown it, because you've been flying KISS. So to those people, I have tested Betaflight about a month ago, because I've heard great stuff about it. And I was like, okay, well, let me check it out and see if it got any easier, see if the user experience and the flight experience is equivalent or better than KISS. And for me, you know, just my opinion,
right,
it was not.
Okay.
And it really goes back to how easy do we want to make it so people could get in the air as quick as possible, rather than get frustrated during the build process. Because that's the hurdle we gotta come through, is that we gotta get more people in the market of flying, because that's going to help drive prices down if people are going to complain about prices, right?
Yeah.
So it's all economics of how you look at things. And there's some people that say, hey, we don't want new people in the hobby. And then those are the same people that usually say something is too expensive. So you got to choose which one you want to kind of lean on. Yeah. So that's kind of, to answer your question, that I know we kind of like went to another area.
Yeah.
But
I do want to say that I've got a title for this portion of the interview, which is that Vik FPV thinks Betaflight sucks. And I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to do that to you.
It's my opinion. So I mean,
well, you know, so I, you know, to kind of go off of what you're talking about. So, I mean, I've been flying since 2016. I open up Beta Flight, I poke around. I can pretty much get done what I need to get done, right? I don't do anything fancy. I typically adjust my rates. I set my, controls and set my fail safe and my arm switch, and that's it, right? I really, when I'm in Beta Flight, I don't do too much. And I've always thought, oh, well, that's easy enough, right? And then, so my son, who's 12 and he's a better pilot than I am, but don't tell him that I said that. God, we were flying on the sim the other day. We put a sim on this machine, which is not quite good enough to run it, but we try anyways. And he was doing stuff, and I was like, oh crap, I can't do that. He was like backwards flying like cricket, and he would go up and do backwards building dives, and I was like, oh my god. I mean, I could do that if I tried, but I'd probably break everything. Anyways, he was trying to set up a Tiny Whoop equivalent that had Beta Flight on it. And I realized very quickly he didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden I was like, crap, how do I teach this kid who's smart? Like, he's not a dumb kid. How Beta Flight works. Like, that's kind of a daunting task. So
it's very difficult to tune with, like, just simple PIDs, and then that's excluding the rates, that's excluding the filtering, that's excluding like all these other variables, that's excluding hardware issues that you may have that you aren't thinking of. It's like, we got to make it easier. So I mean, I don't know if it's gotten easier since 5 years ago.
I remember I've never actually had a KISS or Race One or Race Flight, whatever they're called now. Flight One, is that what they're called? I've never had one of any of their flight controllers, and I've never actually seen the software. I did see Steele did something one time and he showed KISS on his, and this was a while ago. So this was like maybe 2 years ago. And he was just like showing how to do the basic tuning in KISS. And I was shocked because I was like, well, where are all the tabs?
Yep.
Like, where, like, how do you get around in there? Like, I mean, if it is, I think it's like one screen, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's one main screen, but there's 3 other screens.
Okay.
But those are just supplementary. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to those screens to get up in the air. One thing that I will say is, one observation I made from the month of me flying Beta Flight is the motors tab. The assignment of motors, you got to type in a command to reassign the motors to the ESCs if you have them all wonky because you laid the ESC wrong. With KISS, there's literally a drop-down menu to say, okay, how is your ESC placed? Drop down how it's configured, and then that's it. You just select it, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Equivalent to Beta Flight, at least from my understanding, is that
remapping
I would have
motors
to go in the command line. So that's just a simple thing that a child or someone new will get confused on 100% if you don't make it, very user friendly. Like, I don't understand why there's not a drop down menu. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Just store all the variables that you can and let the person understand what to select.
Yeah.
And that's just one thing that you could take from KISS and compare it to Beta Flight.
I will say this. So I'm a software engineer, and Beta Flight is what happens when software engineers design an interface. And it's, you can do a ton of stuff with it. But you're right. It's not the best interface. And I would love to fly KISS or Flight One, whatever it is now, at some point. But I mean, it's daunting. Like, especially when the UI changes and all of a sudden everything's in, like the effectively the PID tuning screen now in Beta Flight is so scary. Like, you've got your original, here's your grid with your PIDs and, all this other stuff. And then there's like this other portion you can go to. It's like the secret hidden menu. And that's where all like the sliders are to control how everything and it's like, what is this? I don't understand. You could go watch an hour-long Bardwell tutorial and you might understand it after that. But
if you find him, I mean, that's if you know about him, right?
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
Anyway, so let's regardless of what software you use, it's important to remember that we all fly FPV. It's all about getting in the air. It's all about enjoying yourself and escaping the world 2 minutes at a time. In our next episode, Vik talks about whether or not tricks are dead. Are there any new tricks? Are there new things to be discovered, new things to be found? And I'll let Vik answer in his own words. I'd like to thank my patrons. If you'd like to be a patron, link is in the description below. My patrons get a podcast form of this content. And so if you're interested in just a podcast form where you can listen to it at your leisure, you don't have to wait for days and days and days to drop, then I suggest that you check out my Patreon down below. I'd also like to say, like, subscribe, comment, smash the button and the bell and do all this stuff. Anyways, thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.